Sione Faumuina played for the Raiders, the Warriors, Hull, the Cowboys and Castleford, as well as 2 tests for the Kiwis before retiring, well, effectively retiring in 2009. He had a great career, but unfortunately life was derailed by a little bit of alcohol abuse and some volatile personal relationships. He has since got his life back on track after realising that's not how he wanted to live, and has released a book called The Second Phase. Sione Faumuina joins me in studio. Great to see you, mate. Thanks for coming in. What has been the motivation behind this book?
Yeah, I guess the motivation behind it is just to get my story out. I went through a lot of off-field incidents during my career while at the Warriors. I'm not that person anymore. I made a lot of sacrifices and changes to my life, and now was the right time for me to get my story, and hopefully people will be able to see what sort of went on during that period.
What was the realisation, or when was the realisation that you weren't living the life that you wanted to live?
That's a good question. When I retired in 2009, I shouldn't say retired, I didn't leave the game on my terms, and I fell out of love with the game. I went through a bit of a depression period post-footy, didn't make the transition into real life all that well. The birth of my first daughter, that she played a big part in changing my life and effectively giving up alcohol, going on 3 years sober. And right now life's good for me at the moment, so I'm pretty happy. I knew that I did have a problem, but I didn't want to try and seek help. It's really tough, especially when you're young, got a lot of disposable income. All you want to do is, I was living the dream basically, playing footy and going out and enjoying it. So, I'm disappointed that what happened during my career, but I'm actually happy that I've come through the other end.
So is the book partly to help young players with that sort of transition, to give them an insight into, what it's like to make that massive jump and all of a sudden become a potential superstar?
Yep, definitely. I'm involved with junior coaching at the moment, and one of the things I always try and stress to my players is that, at the end of the day, rugby league is just a game, but it teaches us a lot of good traits as well. So you'll find out during my story, I didn't have anything else outside of football. I didn't do any extra study. I didn't plan for life after football, and ultimately when I did finish up, I had nothing. After 9 years of professional footy, I had nothing to show for it. So current players and future players, they'll be able to get an insight into, you need to start making some changes. You can't play footy for your whole life, so make the most of it while you can.
I mentioned the personal volatile relationships that you have had throughout your life when you were going through that stage. Was a lot of that down to alcohol and the struggle with that?
Yeah, I believe it was. People forget that professional athletes, they deal with the same pressures that everyone else deals with, but being in the public eye, that's just another pressure in itself. And the way that I dealt with it, I turned to the bottle. I hated being criticized. I didn't like what was being written about me, and I had a real chip on my shoulder. So my attitude at the time was, look, I'm just going to drink. That's the only way I can escape it, even though it's only temporary. It helped at the time.
So how often did you drink? Was it a daily thing? Was it straight after training? How bad did it get for you?
In 2004, that was probably one of the worst years of not only my career but my life. It got to the point where I would finish training and drive straight to my local pub, sit there by myself and down a few jugs, and just contemplate. For a long time in 2004, while I was drinking by myself, I wanted to walk away from the game. I didn't like the pressure that I was under from the public, from the media. And the hardest thing was I had an off-field incident, the first one that was publicised, and I said I'll never drink again. So that was the biggest mistake I think I made during my career in terms of saying that I was going to do something, but then I ended up, obviously I carried on drinking.
You talked about that time in 2004, and I think there was an instance that you do talk about in the book, the second phase, where you were at Warriors training, and you were driving to Warriors training, and that was when you realised you wanted to quit, and Daniel Anderson, the then coach of the Warriors, wanted you to go into his office to talk to him, and you were expecting a bollocking, and you just said to him straight away that you wanted to quit, and you felt like everything changed then. Can you tell me a little bit about that instance?
Yeah, well, at the time, Daniel Anderson was the current Kiwis coach, and he was in preparation for the NZH test, which was to be played in Newcastle. I had an incident, I'm not sure if it was publicised, but the club got wind of it. Okay. And our football manager at the time had alerted me to what had happened. I can't sort of remember what went on, and at that time when I heard about it, I was like, oh man, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore. So my whole intention was driving in and telling Ando, look, I quit, which I did. The look on his face when I told him that, it just changed, because he looked like he was going to give me a blasting for what the latest incident. Yeah. And then I actually mentioned it in the book as well. He just said, oh look, can you play the Kiwi test next week and then take some time off after that, or we can deal with it after. So
how were you? What was your reaction then? Were you a little bit dumbstruck, a little bit, what's going on here? You know, it wasn't what you were expecting, obviously.
It wasn't. I was expecting, oh, okay, well, go grab your stuff, see you later. I was honestly expecting that. But the fact that he didn't, and he still asked me to play in that test, I didn't know what to expect. I'm happy he did, because having that week away from the club, away from Auckland, and spending it with the Kiwis in central New South Wales, I needed that at that time to get away from everything. And but when I got back, I was back into the same old habits.
I think you use a term, rugby league star. You use that in quotation marks at some stage during the book. When you hear phrases like that for the media or the public describing a young player, do you think that does more harm than good for their mental state? In terms of, getting them all hyped up for a massive career and then opening them up to, I suppose, more falls. Yeah,
I think you're right there. There's some great young talent at the moment in the game of rugby league, and then having that mantra, or the next Sonny Bill Williams, or the next Benji Marshall, or the next big superstar, it's a lot of pressure for a young 17, 18-year-old boy. And then if they don't go on to the heights that the media had hyped them up to be, what happens then? Some of the boys, they fall off the grid. They actually, some guys have actually walked away from the game. So, but it is tough. I was lucky that I wasn't, in the limelight early in my career. I don't know how I would have handled it in terms of being built up at such a young age. But the NRL is doing some great things around that now. So, I think NRL clubs are not allowed to sign players until they're 18. They can't debut until they turn 19. And look, it's awesome what they're doing in terms of player welfare and education.
Just getting back to the end of your career, you were 28, 29-ish?
Yeah, 28.
I mean, do you look back? You said before that you didn't actually retire; it kind of just all unfortunately ended. But do you look back at that with any regret, thinking that it was maybe a wasted career, in the sense that you were relatively young for a rugby league player, and you'd played, I think it was 156 odd professional games. You probably had more in you. Do you look back at that with a bit of disappointment or a little bit of regret, or what's the general feeling about that?
Yeah, I do. I do. Look back and I admit that it was a wasted career, only because I knew the potential that I had.
Yeah.
I believe that I could have been a great stalwart of the club at the Warriors, even possibly the Kiwis. And it was hard the last couple of years watching the game and seeing boys that I debuted in the same year still playing. So, Corey Parker, he retired at the end of this year. Justin Hodges, Braith Astor, these are all the boys that I debuted around the same time. So, seeing them still playing in the last couple of years, I was scratching my head like, wow, that could have been me.
Is there anyone in life in rugby league that you look up to, that you go to maybe each day, each week, to not keep you on the straight and narrow, so to speak, but to, you know, keep your life moving along like it is at the moment?
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to like me mentioning him, but my cousin, her husband is David Solomona, so he's a former Kiwi international NRL player who currently works in welfare and education. I've known David since I was 16 years old, so he's moved to Brisbane when he finished his career over in the UK, and having him there in Brisbane has been unbelievable for me. You know, I really respect David, and he probably doesn't even know how much he's affected me in such a good way. So, you know, he's such a great father, he's a great brother, he's an all-round great guy. So having someone like that to look up to, you know, I'm really fortunate. So
You look a little bit emotional about
sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Well, I mean, when did he? So he came around, I suppose, 16 years ago for you. What did he do to help you, and what's been the major part of his, I suppose, the relationship between you two that sticks with you and makes you feel like that?
Yeah, well, he's like my older brother, and he's that guy that no one ever says a bad word about. You know, he's a great husband. He's great to my cousin. He's a great father, and having him, I was with him almost on a daily basis, and his ways started to rub off on me. So anything that, you know, any problems that I had, I'd go to him, and he's straight up as well. So he's not one to try and fluff anything. So and he'd really tell me, you know, not what I wanted to hear, but what I needed to hear at times. So, and I'm thankful, and I'm thankful that he's in Brisbane, and I really appreciate having him around me.
You talked to him, about like he's your brother, but there's also a bit of a father figure who you came across in Wayne Bennett, who tried to get you to the Broncos, but I think it was your agent who, maybe not forced, but you know, got you to the Cowboys. Does part of you wish that you had have gone to the Broncos and worked under Wayne Bennett, who I think also told you that you could have won 3 premierships if you had have gone there?
Yeah, so with Wayne, he actually, when I sat down with Wayne, he actually asked me what was going on at the Warriors at the time, and he said, oh, you know, with the amount of talent that they had, the Warriors should have won 3 premierships by now. And that really took me by surprise. Me and David have spoken about that, and he was like, man, you know, Wayne would have been an awesome coach for you at that time in your career. And that is one of the biggest regrets, was not listening to my heart and signing with the Broncos. I believe I probably would have joined Corey in retiring this year, maybe even, you know, last year. But, you know, once again, there's so many times during my career where I had an opportunity to turn the corner and go down the right path. I just, for some reason, I just didn't.
Do you miss the game? Do you miss playing it? Do you miss training? Do you miss, you know, your teammates? Or is there anything about it that you miss? Yeah,
I do. I do miss playing, which is why I play with a lot of old mates in the local comp on our C grade team, we call it, for Goodna. So I just run around with the boys. I just can't. I miss being around it. So which is why I got back involved in footy, doing a bit of junior coaching, and then also playing a bit of social footy on the side. There's a big, I think, Pacific Masters games happening down in Gold Coast next month. There's a team of boys entered, so we'll be definitely going on there and trying to take it out. Over 35, you have to be over 35.
Brilliant. Well, that is the book, the second phase. It's out early next week. You should get your hands on it. It's a great read. Thanks so much for coming in, Sione. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me.